I think it is a real message that the division is manufactured. It's done on purpose to help the sides. I would argue one more than the other. But it is not reflective of the majority, which sees what is wrong and knows how to put it right.
Well, you're right about that. Our politicians, as a collective body, not highlighting any specific individuals outside of the president, but our politicians on far too many occasions come across as being full of it, definitely doing what's politically expedient, doing whatever they can to maintain power and to keep their jobs as opposed to doing their jobs. And it's usually at the expense of the American people. And I think that, I'm one of those guys that follow the money. And what I mean by that is that on too many occasions, we see politicians, they enter Capitol Hill and, their salaries are supposed to be worth a few $100,000 and they depart being worth millions. It's like a racket, and you just find yourself looking at them as sleazy on a lot of occasions and not doing what's in the best interest of the American people. I'm one of those folks that, as much as I may abhor somebody doing anything that's salacious, that's underhanded, that's sleazy or whatever, in the end, if what you're doing benefits the American people by and large, and you try to get away with something here and there, as much as I may detest it, I'm not losing sleep over it. But when you do stuff that's clearly to your benefit and it's at the expense of the American people, which on far too many occasions we see one politician after another do, regardless of what side of the aisle they are on, you get really, really sick, almost wanting to throw up when you hear them talking about wanting to serve the American people, because good and damn well on far too many occasions they're serving themselves. But the American people, and you're right about this, I've said this on many, many occasions in my travels throughout this country and throughout the world, you find that if people talk with one another, you have far more in common than you do that divides us. We hear that from everyone, but the actual politicians we elect to go to Capitol Hill to represent us, and that's a problem.
I think the more you bust up the primary, the more you have insurgents that come in, I think the more you're going to see a rejection principle. I think we're going to see more of it in the midterms. They're going to try very hard to stop it. That's what the gerrymandering's about. That's what the campaign finance is about. They want to keep the system as it is. They want the parties to be the two main players. But that's starting to break, and I think that's going to bring the biggest change. Now, we saw that on display, and you say that you see plenty of room for coming at Mr. Fauci and the Democrats when it comes to COVID, because...
Well, I see plenty of room coming after the Democrats. My only issue with Dr. Fauci, who obviously has served this country admirably. He's a Medal of Freedom recipient because of his work on the AIDS and HIV. We know the extraordinary work that he's done for decades. But as it strictly pertains to the coronavirus pandemic, my attitude is, with you being the face that you have been, you can't show up on Capitol Hill and plead the fifth 111 times. You just can't do that. That's not right. You've got to answer some questions. Now, some people would sit up there and say, what was he supposed to do, Stephen A.? Because, when you look at it, the pardon that he received from President Biden only was from January of 2014 to January 19th of 2025. So anything that he said clearly could potentially incriminate him and could give them fodder to come after him for future potential transgressions, and they can go after him that way. And I certainly don't want an 85-year-old man thrown in jail, particularly with his exemplary service. I took the liberty of, I was lucky enough, fortunate enough for Senator Rand Paul to come on my podcast, my YouTube show this morning. I taped an interview with him, and I specifically asked him the question, and he said, quote, "I do not want to throw Anthony Fauci in jail." I said, that's not what you said, though. You know what I'm saying? You said you wanted to see him prosecuted. You wanted to see. He said, no, I just want the truth. He said, and let him go on his way. I don't want somebody coming in afterwards and trying to replicate or emulate him. And that's what he said.
Here's my problem. Here's my problem with the whole thing, is that one, and again, look, you know me, you're a dear friend. I like Anthony Fauci. I respect Anthony Fauci. He was good to me when I needed it, and I won't forget it. If Rand Paul wanted the truth, why have they done nothing to pursue what the Chinese did in that lab? Why have they done nothing to change the ability to litigate against the companies that made the vaccine? Why? If you want to know the truth about the jab, as they call it, and about what happened in the lab, why are you only going after Fauci? Does he really believe America created COVID-19?
Well, again, that was a legitimate question on your part because remember, the president at the time once called it the China virus. Don't ask me, ask China. Remember when President Trump said that? And he said that to the Asian reporter or whatever. The whole time, right? Well,
the whole time.
Exactly. So the point is that it's clearly a valid point for you to bring that up because where's the consistency? There's no consistency there. But in the same breath, when you think about what we went through as a country, the mask, the lockdown, the 6-foot distancing, the shut down of restaurants and stuff like that, it drastically impeded. I understand worldwide it was a global pandemic, but here in the United States of America, it definitely compromised severely, I might add, the quality of life of the American people. And he was the face of the coronavirus pandemic. And so because that's the reality, it's not like this politician that got some money or did something underhanded and you just want to get him caught or you want to target him. No, in this particular instance, this is a man that we trusted every single word that we said, to the point where if you provided any level of dissent whatsoever, your job was in jeopardy. You could have lost your job. You could have got yourself in trouble. You could have been ostracized because the Democrats were leaning on that to some degree. Let's just keep it a buck and call it what it is. That's what a lot of Democrats were doing at that particular moment in time, and it was problematic. But we trusted this man in a way we would never trust politicians. We trusted this man because of his brilliant record associated with science. And then when you hear about the diaries and you hear about some of the decisions that he was making, had nothing to do with science whatsoever. And then you saw the impact that he was having in California, in the state of New York, in terms of some of the decisions former Mayor de Blasio and obviously some of the elected officials in California had, then that does give you cause to pause and you do find yourself craving answers. So again, you're not wrong. You make valid points, Chris. I'm not trying to say that. But what I'm saying is, it is legitimate to sit back and look at him, specifically Dr. Fauci, and say, yo, what's up? I would like some answers to these questions. You can get that from him because the trust we placed in him was profound compared to what we'd ever give a politician.
I'm with you. But this was not the first time that he's been before Congress. He's testified on multiple occasions. He's answered these questions multiple times.
But let me bring Chris Cuomo here. Chris Cuomo, contrary to what some critics may try to say about you, you're one of the most honest brokers I've ever encountered. I love you like a brother. You know how I feel about you. And I heard you say something I never heard you say before last night watching you. Because when I see something like this, I got to watch my man Chris Cuomo. And Chris Cuomo said, Dr. Fauci did look like he had something to hide. You never said that before.
You plead
so
the
what
fifth?
I'm saying to you...
Because anybody who pleads the fifth...
No, I get you.
Anybody who pleads the fifth seems like they're trying to hide something.
Yeah. That's fair. But what I'm saying is, considering your profound respect for this man, your knowledge of his record, his resume, his history, I know how deep it hits you for that to come from you. And what I'm saying is, even though you'd say that about anybody pleading the fifth, go watch yourself talking about somebody pleading the fifth and then re-air how you looked last night when you said it about Fauci. He's different, and it's emblematic of what I said about him just now in terms of how Americans looked at him a few years ago. He was the gospel. He was the face of science. We trusted him. That is not a man we want to see pleading the fifth. Not him. I understand it based on the circumstances and the fact that he had testified over 20 times with Congress, but it's still him, and it's science. And by the way, Chris, if he sat up there and said, and Rand Paul, Senator Paul said this morning to me, if he had sat there and said, look, man, I thought this. I made a mistake. It's not an exact science. I messed up. He said, what could we say? We could criticize him, but that's about it. We can't do anything else. What could we say? But that's not what happened.
I don't believe your analysis is 100% no surprise. I don't believe for a second that they would have accepted an apology. I don't believe for a second that they wouldn't twist anything he said to fit into a felony and that they would immediately refer it. Look, I believe they're going to vote him in contempt, which is a stupid thing to do that advances nothing but their own momentary interests.
I agree.
So I get why Fauci's lawyers
Well, I do believe it
made him
accomplishes
do that.
something, though. I do think you... Okay,
What?
but let me say this.
He's not going to give you... He'll give you the same answers he gave you before, but he's not going to give you new answers.
I don't think it amounts to nothing. I don't think it amounts to nothing. Here's why.
Go ahead.
because he's Anthony Fauci and because there's such a direct connection to the Democratic Party. Remember, the Democratic Party rode that wave to get Trump out of office because, again, Trump and the economy, things were, according to them, everything was looking a little bit decent. And then the virus, the pandemic arrived. And all of a sudden, everything went haywire and everything went downhill. And they rode that momentum along with getting Trump to be Trump, with his antagonistic, belligerent, narcissistic, immature self. And what does he do? He goes out there, he runs his mouth, and he puts himself in the untenable positions that he put himself in and got himself booted out of office in 2020. Legitimately, by the way, he lost the damn election. It wasn't rigged. He lost. But the point is that the Democrats rode that wave. And so when you look at Anthony Fauci now, the bottom line is they don't get to separate themselves from him now. They don't get to pull that off. If there's any suspicion that can be elevated in his direction, that gets attached to the Democratic Party because you utilized him basically to enforce so much upon the American people at that particular moment in time. And folks are not going to forget that come midterm.
You're right.
They're not going to forget it.
You're right. You're right. And I'll tell you what, one of my many, many regrets, and I know regrets don't really serve us well, is I told Anthony at the time, I do not like the position they're putting you in. I do not like it. This is political messaging. Tony, you are no politician. But they liked him there. Trump wanted him there because he didn't want to own it. Biden wanted him there because he didn't want to own it. And now Fauci has to own it, and I've never thought it was fair, and I was always worried we were coming here. I got to jump. Stephen A., man, I love talking to you. I always tell people this when they say, wow, Stephen A., this show's doing this, and the SXM, and this, and the First Take. I say, none of it surprises me. I said, once you spend 5 minutes with the guy, I mean, I think you could do 10 shows a week, and every one of them would be #1. You're great. I love you. Thank you for coming on.
Well, listen, you always help me. I learn from you every day, my brother. I appreciate you. You know that. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.